Second lecture note. The theme of our second lecture note is the state. We are going to look at this in 4 sections. The first, origin of the state. The second, the concept of the state. The third, the functions of the state. And finally, fourth, forms of government. Let us look at the first section, origin of the state. The state is a political structure that came forth at a certain stage of social development in different regions of the world in qualitatively different conditions. This process took place with different intensity. In relation to this process, the term genesis is used, the birth of the state. The Greek word henesis means genus, onset, or origin. The lack of a single reason for the emergence of statehood leads to the existence of a number of theories of the origin of the state. The first of this theory, the class theory. The founders of this theory are F. Engels and K. Marx. The idea of this theory states that the state arises for economic reasons. The development of the economy leads to the complication of society. There is a social division of labor, surplus product, and private property, resulting in social classes, which requires a change in the nature, forms, and methods of its management. The state appears as a product of the irreconcilability of class contradictions, of struggles, and as a tool for the suppression of other classes by the ruling class. The second theory, the theological or religious theory. Founder Thomas Aquinas. Idea of this theory states that the state emerged as a result of the divine will, reflects the ideal model of human community conceived in heaven, the city of God. The third theory, the patriarchal theory. Author Aristotle. The idea of this theory states that the emergence of the state occurs as a result of the expansion of the family, and the power of its head appears to flow from the power of the father, Latin patre, father or head, over to the members of his family. Patriarchal theory is partly reflected in the idea of paternalism, that is, the assignment of duties to the state to perform socially useful functions. The fourth theory is the contract theory. The founders of this theory are T. Hobbes, D. Locke, and J. Rousseau. The idea of this theory states that in the natural, that is, without state, the ideas of this theory says that in the natural state, people did what they wanted, but when social contractions escalated to resolve them, a social contract was concluded, on the basis of which people voluntarily united in the state in order to better ensure freedom and mutual interests. The state is seen as an artificial product of the conscious will of people who seek to ensure their own freedoms and order in society. The fifth theory, the theory of violence. The founders are L. Gomplowczyk and Karkowski and Irdorin. The idea of this theory states that the state arises for military and political reasons as a result of the conquest of one tribe by another. Military superiority leads to economic exploitation and the need to complicate the political forms of organizations of society in order to keep subordinates in subjection. The sixth theory, the psychological theory. The founders, L. Patrianzitsky, Gittard. The idea of this theory states that the emergence of the state is a manifestation of objective laws inherent in the human psyche. The need to live in a collective, to subordinate and obey, the search for authority and dependence on power, The state is the sum of the mental interactions of people and their associations. Let us look at the second section, the concept of the state. Typical is the understanding of the state in a broad sense as a political and territorial organization of public power which has a management apparatus, leads an, leads an independent existence, and issues mandatory orders for the entire population. In a narrow sense, the state is understood as a state mechanism, the apparatus, a system of authorities. The concept of the state in the modern sense was introduced in the 15th century by Niccolo Machiavelli. In Russian language, the word state is derived from sovereign, which denoted either the owner of a feudal domain, the owners of serfs, or the supreme ruler, and which was often the Russian equivalent for the Latin word dominus. The concept of state is sometimes equated with the word country. However, a country is usually called a certain territory with a population, and a state is an organization that manages this territory and this population. The main characteristics of a state include 1. The presence of territory, 2. Population, 3. The presence of sovereign power, that is sovereignty, the quality of state power expressed in the ability of the state to independently exercise power on its territory. Also among the features of the state are the presence of a management apparatus, the generally binding nature of state acts, which determines its monopoly on legitimate violence, the presence of the state treasury and taxes, the presence of official symbols. The state is closely linked to the law, acting on a legal basis. We can say that on the one hand, the state gives birth to law, while on the other hand, the state itself exists because of law. The state itself represents a certain legal friction. That is, it exists due to the belief in its existence. This next section, the state function. The functions of the state are the main activities of the state in solving its goals and objectives. It is in the functions that the essence of a particular state, its nature, and social purpose are manifested. The main classification of states' functions is their division by sphere of activity. The first, which are internal and external. The main internal functions of the state include economic, that is economic development, support and management; social, which includes building a social protection system for the population; fiscal, that is tax collection; law enforcement, that is ensuring public order. And the main external functions of the state include the defense of the country, that is border security; maintaining and spreading international influence; and third, preserving of state identity in the context of globalization. Let us look at now the form of the state. The form of the state is a method of organizing political power comprising the form of government, the form of state structure, and the political regime. Let us look at the form of government. The form of government characterizes the order of formation and organization of the highest state authorities, their relations with each other and the population. Depending on the specifics of the form of government, states are divided into monarchical, that is, in turn, the types of their corresponding form are absolute, dualistic, and constitutional monarchies, and republican. They are presidential, parliamentary, and mixed. Monarchy are monarchy from the Greek monarchia, a form of government in which power is fully or partially concentrated in the hands of the sole head of state, the monarch, the king, the Shah, or the emperor. Signs of a monarchy: power is inherited, exercised indefinitely, and does not depend on the will of the population. The republic, on the other hand, which comes from the Latin word res publica, is a form of government in which the head of state is elected and replaceable, and his power is considered to be derived from the voters or representative body. Features of the republic: elective body, limited term of office, dependence on voters. Let us now look at the form of state structure. The form of state structure represents the territorial structure of the state, the relationship between the state as a whole and its constituent territorial units. According to the form of state structure, states are divided into unitary, complex unitary, that is regionalist, and federal and confederate. A unitary state is a simple unified state, parts of which are administrative, territorial units and do not have signs of state sovereignty. It has a unified system of supreme bodies and a unified system of legislation. A federation is a complex union state built on a national or national territorial principle, parts of which are state entities and have to some extent state sovereignty and other attributes of statehood. In addition to the highest federal bodies and legislation, there are higher bodies and legislation of these subjects of the federation. Let us now look at the political regime. A political regime is a system of methods and means of exercising state power, depending on the characteristics of the data set of methods of state power. They are democratic and anti-democratic, that is authoritarian, totalitarian political regimes. A democratic political regime is characterized by the functioning of the state mechanism based on the principle of separation of powers, the legal nature of the state, political pluralism, the existence of a developed society, the existence of a developed civil society, and the observance and guarantee of human and civil rights and freedoms. Non-democratic political regimes are characterized by the alienation of the people from power, the management of society mainly by command and administrative methods, the dominance of one party in the political system, the largely illegal nature of the government's activities, infringement of the rights and freedoms of citizens, reliance on power structures, control of the media, persecution of the political opposition. And with that, we come to the end of our second lectures. Thanks for your listening.